Oh man, that intro is pretty good at getting me pumped the heck up. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the one and only replay in this entire VOD list. To explain the story here real quick, when this was live, I cast games 2 through the end of time, but unfortunately I had missed this first one. So, now that I'm here, we got the replay, let's rock and roll and see what ends up happening. Spawning here, oh, swap the spawn locations, in the lower left corner of the map, playing for Empire-Fnatic. Well, Empire in this case. It's gonna be the blue Terran player, Empire Happy. And Emil left the game. His opponents up to the north in the top right from Acer. My pleasure to introduce the red Zerg player, Scarlett. Now this is from the Acer Team Strike Up, and I didn't have sounds on, sorry about that. It's worth noting that this is a best of 9 between these two teams, but it's only a best of 1 between these players. It's an all-kill format, and whoever stays on top, well, they keep playing until they're killed by another. So this is the first game of the day. It's worth noting that the Acer Team Strike Up has a server and does blind picks. You don't know who Acer is going to send out first, and vice versa. Acer has no idea that Happy would be first for Empire-Fnatic. Empire-Fnatic as well is kind of a joint venture, as neither Empire nor Fnatic could really field a team themselves, but together they've got this really nice alliance. So you may see the likes of harrassment, Cos, you name it. If they're on either team, they will probably play out sometime today. Now I'd love to talk leaps and bounds about Scarlett, guys. We all know her to be good. We've heard the jokes about creep, we've seen her Mutalisk control in the past, but the thing about Scarlett is she's more of a recluse. You don't really get to see a lot of her in these online cups. She's popped into Zotac once or twice in the last year, and well, until we have like another IEM Red Bull, I don't think we're going to bait her out of her hiding anytime soon. Currently spending time in Korea, allegedly going to stream though. I'm looking very forward to that. No clue what her actual plans are, but you don't, because there's not a lot of her out there, it plays to a great advantage. We're happy you may not know Scarlett's playstyle, what her current up-to-date version of playing is. I mean, granted, there's people who find the barcodes in Korea, and you can kind of figure out who's who if you look really, really hard. But for the most part, there's not a lot of replays, there's not a lot of VODs. Scarlett is not readily available. So for Happy, he's got to be a little bit, I'd say very extra cautious. Because right now, ZVT's in a bit of a funny spot. I think if handled correctly, either player can win the game, but when they do, it's always pretty one-sided. You don't see a lot of trading engagements. I mean, technically, we can talk about the Bailings and the Marines nullifying each other, but in that sort of everlasting tug-of-war, when someone starts winning, they're going to win. There's not a lot of reeling it back after you've taken some losses early on. Now, I mean, if you go to that point, we don't know. There's going to be a Reaper first out of Happy. He's making a second one to follow this up. Command Center rightfully timing out here, but the question I have, of course, is does he make this third one? The goal of having 2 Reapers, harass, scout, maybe pick off a drone or 2, definitely kill those first 6 lings, but if you invest in more than 2, the goal is kind of start killing queens. You don't have to do that with 2 Reapers, and it's more like a pleasant surprise if you can, and if you do. Still just catting around here. No 3rd Reaper, so he throws in the factory instead. This is a pretty big deal because this means that the Reaper is going to be accompanied by Hellions to the follow-up instead of that 3rd Reaper. Scarlett with her Overlord so boldly right over top of the barracks does see this coming in full view, and that's because, as we see a reactor comes down, you don't... It's so weird. Once upon a time as a Zerg player, to send your Overlord into your opponent's base like this early, suicidal, stupid, a foolish mistake, if you will, because Marines will clean it up no problem. But since Marines aren't really what come out of Terran players first anymore, Zerg don't have a lot to fear, so she can comfortably keep it there for quite some time. In fact, it kind of reminds me of like when you're scouting a Protoss player. You know that the cybernetic score is going to take a long time, the stalkers will be delayed, and you can kind of just scout for a long, long time. And let's not forget, once she starts getting a little bit worried, she can just move the Overlord to the right, and there's this nice little nook you can hide in that's high ground vision, so that nothing below can shoot without, I guess, the assistance of an air unit or a floating building of some form. For Happy though, the thing is, I'm gonna throw commencers coming down the wall too, I like that. We see a lot more people incorporating that, but Happy plays a very similar style, where we're probably not gonna see mech out of him. We're probably not gonna see anything abnormal. We might see Widow Mines, probably not Hellbats, and most definitely Thors if the game goes late enough. I'm not sure if Scarlett has kind of become one of the Roach Hydra players that has become so popular of recent days, but it's worth noting, once upon a time, Scarlett, her Banelings, her Mutalisks, these were things to be rivaled and scared of. I think Hyun was the only person who would really make as much of either of those units as she does, but yeah, like I said, it's been a long time. I think the last time I actually got to cast Scarlett myself was for the, I want to say Red Bull qualifiers last year. It was quite some time ago, so again, in that time period, I'm not sure if she's adapted to the new Roach Hydra style that's become incredibly popular, or if we'll see the standard expected Banelings, Zerglings, and Mutalisks. I would expect so. I mean, the thing too, it doesn't matter how strong they decide to make another unit in the game. for God knows how long. Since Wings of Liberty, you've been using Banelings, you've been using Zerglings, you've been trading out against Terran players the same way. Kind of expecting to stick around that same style. It's a lot of the reason you see a lot of these pro players having a harder time transitioning to mech. There's some players who make it look easy. You watch Avilo when he streams, you watch Goody when he plays. I mean, it's kind of like, geez, you can't beat mech, lol, GG, ultimate composition. But that's not always the case, because it's always that comfort zone, knowing how to use it, how to play it. I do like, though, that we're starting to see a lot of the Korean players start investing into that more mechanized style of play, though. You know, whether it's Jockshi, Innovation, or any of the guys from Pro League. You're starting to see the Terrans, at the bare minimum, change it up a bit. But, ooh, hold on. I should have been looking for this a little bit better. The whole reason I went off on the tangent of mech was because I thought Happy was going to change it up, but it's not mech. Not yet, at least. Just simply Blue Flame for the time being. Now, Blue Flame... Okay, if we're going to be honest, guys, Blue Flame can be game-endingly dangerous for a player like Scarlett, who's got all these lings out, who doesn't have roaches on the way anytime soon. It's meant to be something that catches your opponent off guard, though, as the biggest priority when using it. So right now, Scarlett doesn't know this is coming, and Happy, oh, he almost gets the queen kill, actually. I do like that she's focusing on top of the Hellions, not accidentally auto-attacking the Reapers, but look at Hellion's control, or Happy's control of these Hellions as he keeps playing up. He has, I'm gonna jinx this, he hasn't lost anything yet. All of these units still alive, and he's taken 0 resources lost. On the return, though, it's not gonna take a lot. One errant Zergling, oops, surprise, your Hellions are dead, but still. The Blue Flame move is really cool. Oh my god, I was gonna say Happy doesn't play mech, but he's throwing down double armor, so he's probably actually gonna play mech as the follow-up to this. This is really cool, because I think this will certainly catch Scarlett off guard. The Overseer will see these Hellions coming, and she can complete this wall off with 2 more buildings if she wants to, but in doing so may have to yield this 3rd. The problem with this is, there's no roaches out just yet. Holding this off will not be easy, and the Hellion TPS here is going to be phenomenally large. Not only does it throw a lot of them for extra splash damage, let's not forget with Blue Flame, they hit for 19 versus Lights. These Zerglings don't stand a chance. The Queens might be his best bet. Drones are pulled away immediately. I almost feel like that's bait for Happy to go for those and ignore the Queens, but he tears down the Queens anyways, knowing that these are the bigger threat. Some Zerglings get on top of the Hellions, and while these were numerous, let's not forget, a lot of these were low from that earlier attack. Scarlett's drones are lining up, though, and they're providing a lot of free kills. But for Happy, I don't think this ends up being worth it. Not in the slightest. If he had pulled those other Hellions back home, if he had managed to repair, I think he could have gotten a lot more out of this. But instead, Scarlett only loses about 8 workers. First off, fantastic for having drones stacked up over here on the right side. Like, how does that happen? She did lose her Queens, granted, but the resources lost was already massively far ahead for Happy. Now he's actually behind by 20. Now, granted, those numbers in and of themselves don't typically mean a lot, but one of the biggest things Scarlett does on the other side of the field is she scouts the factories going down right now. She scouts that it's going to be mech, and I'm sure for a moment you have to do a double take. You're like, wait, this is Empire Happy. This isn't Koss. This isn't Goody. This isn't some other Terran player that we've seen in the past like Straylock. This is Empire Happy. So, we do have Mutalisk coming out regardless. These are going to be good. I've seen Zerg players beat plenty of mech with Mutalisks en masse. The problem is that's kind of the key phrase there, en masse. Prior to that, when there's a couple Thors out, even Vikings in the early game pair well with this. But actually, oh, hold the phone. Happy's a little bit late on Starport. He's going for that Thor Hellion composition, which is great, but not so much against massive amounts of Mutalisk. So we'll see just how much Scarlett decides to invest in here. If it's only going to be about the 10 or so for now, that's kind of meant to go pick off, say, workers, tech labs, reactors, not really kill the factories, not really kill units. If she goes beyond that, she's definitely looking to go for a fight, but with Enduring Locust starting up, chances are this is going to be Swarm Host, and this is something I'm very excited to see, because I've always wondered, like, you know, is Scarlett the type of player to go for that style? She's been, for the longest time, known to adapt, and I think that's one of her greatest strengths, and that's what makes her one of the best Zerg players in the world. She doesn't get stuck on one strategy, and she certainly doesn't get stubborn with them like some others do. And this Swarm Host, we'll see how well she can use them. The idea behind the Swarm Host, too, is you want to really get these before your opponent has tank production up, but Happy has actually gotten into tanks from the get-go. A lot of times, you'll see Terran players who are going mech, they want to go for these earlier Thors, these earlier Hellbats to push with, to try and bully their opponents with. But Happy is kind of electing to go for the more defensive style by getting these tanks out, which I don't disagree with, but at the same time, it's kind of like, okay, you're basically right now saying to your opponent, I would like to stay on 3 bases, please. Maybe I'll take a 4th later on, if you allow me, but for now, I'd like to just sit on 3 bases, get my upgrades, and max out. Now, if there's actually... Oh, well, hang on. Hellions are wrapped around the side. If there's a chance to take a 4th of this map, I gotta say, Happy will be in a really good spot. A lot of the reasons you'll see mech players lose to Zerg is either they'll lose an army outright, and, you know, surprise, have nothing. Man, really didn't get too many drones for that. It goes from 8 to 15. Not bad, but not good. Or alternatively, they'll starve to death. Now, he is trying to get this fourth over here. He's floating it with the command center, but even though this will be a planetary fortress, there's already Lings waiting, and he'll have to come over and clean this up with a couple Hellbats, but this shouldn't be the end of the world for him by any means. The Mutalisk count, as well, is always going to be a threat. Scarlett hasn't invested in the amount that makes them insane, but she is going for Air Carapace, which to me kind of signals one of two things. One, a second Spire is coming down for double upgrades, so might make some Swarm Hosts for now, and I think with these initial 10 or 15 Swarm Hosts, actually how many does she have right now? 11 plus, yeah, 4, so 15 Swarm Hosts. These are going to be used to kind of keep tanks back, to kind of draw the line in the sand, say, Happy, you can't come this way. And if that ends up being the case, Scarlett, she's going to be able to make just massive, crazy Mutalisks behind this. I think the upgrades are going to be really interesting to watch. This may alternatively as well later on be for Greater Spire. We have seen Broodlords in the past versus mech, but it's not really the most effective. And a lot of it comes down to the way the Vikings intertwine into the army, I suppose. With 1-1 upgrades as well, they're not exactly the flimsy things they used to be in Wings of Liberty before these upgrades were combined. But the Swarm Hosts have started advancing forward, and as I said before, I don't think she's going to try and use these at the end of the game or anything like that. They're kind of meant to say, look, Happy, you have to deal with these. Line drawn in the sand, fight me. And for Happy, he's going to have no problem with that. There's no support for these right now. There's 10 Mutalisks flying around the map randomly, but they're not here and not ready to fight. So Scarlett unbros them. She's going to retreat. Happy is pushing across the map. He scans, so he knows those are right there. He could siege up right here, and this terrain plays against the Locusts in a big way because they actually don't have the range to shoot over this, whereas the siege tanks do. Hellbats on the front line can buffer as well, but he uses the tanks to cover his tracks while the Thors and Hellbats move towards this fourth base. But realistically, it's actually a sixth because Scarlett's got the gold. She's got the upper left, and this base is of very little significance to her. In fact, Happy's actually seen the other bases around the map too while this is going on. A couple Lings running around, but there's a planetary fortress, as stated before, down here, so not the biggest deal in the world. The Mutalisks do get on top of this, and as stated before, you don't need a lot of Mutalisks to make this work versus tanks. They're just here to be that air-to-ground force that they need to be. And with the tanks following, this means that the next Locust wave is going to push into the Thors. It'll push into the Hellbats in this base. Is it worth giving up your entire army for? And I gotta say, the answer sounds like a very resounding no. If Scarlett had no other bases, maybe that's the case. Some Hellbats ran across this too, Happy trying to catch the worker lines unguarded, but the Mutalisks defend rather nicely. And he scouts that double Spire, so right now for Happy, he knows he has to deal with these Swarm Hosts, which is not an easy task, but he also knows he has to invest heavily in the anti-air. Now, whether this means Vikings or Thors, we'll have to wait and see. Chances are it'll be a little bit of both. Another sort of run-by going up here to the top left. There's actually a Swarm Host here ready to defend, awkwardly enough. Same with the new wave coming out, but, you know, like I said before, if you Magic Block Mutalisk, the thing is, the splash damage from the Thor, it really only hits things that are clumped up directly on top of one another. As we see as they funnel together, yes, they're going to take some damage, but spread out, Magic Blocks en masse, they really just, they don't feel the burn, and with so few Mutalisks actually dying there, those are going to heal up in no time, and Happy back at home, granted he's got more Thors, he's got more Vikings, but he doesn't really have a composition that I feel can punish Scarlett right now. In fact, his army's so far behind in supply that there's no way he's moving out of his base anytime soon. Oh my, that's a lot of turrets coming down at the fourth. I guess that's a good thing as well, because it means the Mutalisks can't just come in and harass, easy peasy, and win. But that number is growing quite significantly, up to 27. And like I said before, this is kind of a really abusive way to use this. But Happy finds the Swarm Hosts. Granted, there is going to be that Locust wave that pops out, but the tank splash damage combined with the Hellbats will rip these Locusts apart. This first wave will be irrelevant. He picks off, what was that, 14? Okay, so he only gets about 4. 10 have died total this game. But he pushes this back. Sorry, I'm pressing all the wrong buttons and closing tabs. Resources lost, surprisingly the same. Again, when you go for Swarm Host, they're that free unit that's kind of ha ha ha, I win, but not always. They're not even trading out too effectively, but again, the point for Scarlett is she's not investing in the Swarm Host to be her end-all. She's going for 3/3 weapons, she's still making more, but the idea is to focus around these spires. And with 6 bases of economy soon to be, but more importantly, all these extra geysers plus a gold, she will certainly be able to afford any amount of Mutalisk losses, even if any go down. Now granted, these Mutalisks, you can have 80 of them, but if they clump up in one moment, they can all be gone. So gotta be so desperately careful about this. The Vikings are kind of cute. I hate to use that phrase, but they are kind of cute because they're not going to help out that much. As we see, Scarlett just swoops on in, does the Magic Box trick, so there's no splash damage to be had here. The Vikings took some of the fires. The Thors are just going down. He doesn't kill much of our Mutalisks, and the tanks, Well, what can they do but try and maybe kill this base? Not with the Locust coming out to defend. There are some Hellbats walking around to the side segmented off, but there's no drones up here for them to pick off. Scarlett has spread her drones so nicely between all these bases, and she's only got 60 of them. So while she's lost some while this was going on to the combination Banshees and these Hellion run-bys, these hit squads that are happening, there's just simply no pressure coming from Happy. But I didn't even see this. Somehow, some way, he finds time, energy, effort, and the method to actually take a 5th base. This makes no sense to me because Happy's been under what I call like a severe lack of an army. I wanted to call it attrition, but that's not quite the case. Either way, his army just doesn't exist, and this planetary fortress will only hold so long. You're gonna have to spend a lot of SCVs repairing it, and if that's the case, then you're not gonna be mining off of it. Happy if he scans, could maybe pick off a swarm host or 2, but gonna go for the drones instead. That gold. Scarlett, you know what? She's got so many Mutalisks. I really don't know how you deal with this. Other than maybe like some good Seeker missile hits, you obviously can't backwards transition in Marines. It's way too costly. It's gonna take Scarlett making some bad moves like what we just saw for a couple Thor volleys to deal enough damage to start killing some. But that's, again, Happy has to rely on Scarlett messing up, not about his own good moves, and that's never something you really want to have to worry about. So what we may end up seeing is as siege lines get established in the middle of the map, you know, you kind of start having turrets go down, they'll soak the Locust hits, they'll be providing the anti-air, but what he needs is Ravens. I kind of joked about the Seeker missile hits because it's really almost impossible to land them on top of Mutalisk sometimes, but with no Ravens, he's got no point defense drones to keep his wave safe versus the Locust. He's got no Seeker missiles to deal damage, and more importantly, no auto turrets either. He actually never retook this geyser. That seems like a small mistake. But that's a lot of missile turrets, and this is one of those things that's maybe not a huge mistake out of Scarlett, but this will cost her a couple Mutalisks, because to take down this planetary fortress, she has to tear through so many turrets. In fact, the Mutalisk losses are racking up pretty quickly. No longer at that 40 count she was before, but down to 33. But she's clumped up, and these Thors are gonna get some massive hits, but they go for the Overseer! I'm not even playing, and that frustrates me. Meanwhile, back on the other side of the map, still trying to hold the line versus these swarm hosts. Again, you put a couple missile turrets down, they'll soak the auto attacks of the Locust, they'll provide the anti-air. But for Scarlett, man, that could have been devastating. That would have been Happy's way to get into this game in a big way if he had managed to get those volleys off on top of the Mutalisks instead of the Overseer. But Thors classically have some of the worst AI in StarCraft 2. But Scarlett said, you know what? I can't kill this base, I can't hurt your economy, maybe I'll just go in from the side and start taking out your production. But there's a lot of turrets waiting for her. However, the Mutalisk one volley down to each of these turrets, and they're almost nothing at all as far as defense goes. A couple Vikings coming in, maybe try the fire into the range of the Thors. There are 4 of them here, and big hits going off, but Scarlett again not dying. And if you don't kill a Mutalisk, it's going to heal to full. It's almost like the Hydra is you cut off one head, 2 grow back type thing. But some big volleys and some scary hits will send Scarlett sailing. She's still sitting on 27 Mutalisks though. This army's only able to take these fights because he's catching her in these awkward positions. She's getting, dare I say, greedy, going for the production, going for the tech labs. She's trying to pick off her opponent, you know, gut him raw a little too early, and that's what allows Happy to get in position to go for these clumped up hits. But man, oh man, how many Mutalisks did we just see pop? A lot, because now up to 39 rather, sorry, wrong buttons there. And the Swarm must have been doing their job this whole time. I told you guys in the early game, the idea behind this is like, you just want to keep the tanks back. You want to keep Happy from pushing. You want to really limit what Happy can do. But surprisingly enough, somehow we still find ourselves on a nearly split map situation. The only base not being claimed right now is Happy's own gold. And for Scarlett, if she can get a big enough bank, she might even be ballsy enough to actually take that gold herself, knowing that it would at least creep block Happy. But again, the volleys from these Thors are looking good. They've got to walk away from the Locust, which is really unfortunate. Oh, get in range of the turrets! Trying to hit run, trying to get in position. However, it looks like they will take some pretty severe damage to those Locusts being sent off to the right like that. They gave the tanks a break, granted, but it caused so much problems for the Thors. Now looking to push forward once again. One of the biggest problems I see with Happy's army is he doesn't really have a lot of Hellbats. He doesn't have any Hellions. It's so difficult to deal with these Locusts if you've got nothing to throw at them with fodder. The idea is the Locusts actually go down very fast to Blue Flame Hellbats, but also on top of that, they soak the hits so the tanks don't have to. Finally getting an Ultralisk Cavern out, Scarlett says, you know what, enough is enough. You're making a ton of Thors, you don't have a lot of tanks, you have no buffer. Ultralisk may just run rampant underneath this. And Thors need, they got some pretty high armor value, but as we see, they still take quite a wallop from those Locusts. Oh, but this clumped up set over here almost goes down. That could have been much worse for Scarlett, but now trying to run away. Decides to turn around and take a bit of a fight. Goes from having 30 plus Mutalisks down to 20 in one bad engagement. Focused too far on the left side. Loses a lot of the swarm host while this is happening too. Happy is somehow pushing her back. A situation where he should be stuck in this turtle stance where there's no ravens and no way to push into his opponent. But Scarlett, she finds a way to still stay in this game. These swarm hosts are too good. She took losses on both ends, but that's almost okay because she's going to eventually want to start freeing up some supply for these Ultralisks. There's 66 drones currently, maybe sacrificing some of those, maybe not, I don't know. But 3/3 Mutalisks are nothing to wince at. Even with 6 Thors, even with 8 Thors, 7 Thors, sorry, as I can count. They're not going to be fun to deal with, and Happy has finally started to invest in his first Raven, but he didn't go for Corvid reactors, so this Raven's not going to pop with much energy, or enough energy to really do anything. Mutalisks are going to swarm over here towards the right side of the map. The lower right, where Happy currently has his planetary fortress situated, has been sort of repopulated with turrets. But again, we saw turrets just really don't hold up. You know what I really like to see out of Happy too is whether it's mules, whether it's SCV, something on the front line, start spam repairing these units. But the Mutalisks get into the base that's already mined out. I guess for gas this was an important one to hold on to, but losing this orbital is not the end of the world for Happy. However, he's going to realize there's a chink in his armor because there's no turrets over here. Scarlett can then move to the left and start picking up his depots that way. Looking like he doesn't want to come home defense says, you know what, I've had it. I have to push, I have to fight, I have to find a way to win. You're just going to keep pressuring me with these locusts all these games. These free units are going to eventually chip me away to death, and looks like he will siege up at this base. Now this base earlier was a bit of a no contest. Scarlett did not need this base in the slightest. Now she does. Coming to the late game, she doesn't have that 7k bank you'd expect to see, but sitting more relatively on 2k. Vipers are coming out. Perhaps Blinding Clouds may just be the answer, but the Thors are still just so freaking numerous. Even though the Locust will kill a couple here, well actually hang on, a couple more go down than I thought would have. Again, they didn't have a lot of health for that first time. But I was going to say, you need the Thors to zone out the Vipers to deal with those Mutalisks. Scarlett does take the gold of Happy while this was going on, by the way. I wasn't kidding about that earlier. Happy is so far on the left side of the map, he's never really been able to protect anything on the right. And we've just seen that witness here. There is a Raven here that does have enough for a point defense drone, and I kind of hope he uses to put a point defense drone down. He may be saving for a Seeker Missile, a God Mode Seeker Missile on those Mutalisks, but that's a lot harder to do than you would think. Mutalisks are fast enough that they can run away from a point-blank point defense drone, or sorry, Seeker Missile, but PDD does go down. It's going to eat up some of the Locust shots, but it looks like the tank line has fallen a little too much. Happy went for it all. He put it all on the line, said I need to win this game, and unfortunately just barely couldn't here. Scarlett making 13 more Mutalisks, but it's not like Happy's out of the game yet. Scarlett may have picked off a command center, may have picked off another command center, but in the end, she didn't touch the production. So Happy is still making 4 Thors at a time, 2 Hellbats, sorry, and 4 tanks now, as he once again begins to worry about these swarm hosts. But getting here to the main, he sees the Ultras Cavern, will decide to just try and get a volley or two off of the Mutalisks before going down. Gosh, that's so crazy watching 3/3 Mutalisks take that much damage from one Thor volley, but that's the danger of it, folks. You can't clump, and Scarlett has been clumping a lot this game. But Thor's being picked off left and right. Neither player really has a crazy army supply. And what's interesting is, you know, I said maybe he didn't do enough, but he may have hurt her just barely enough, because Scarlett, let's not forget, she spread out all her workers earlier on, so she doesn't have a lot of drones actually at each base right now, and Happy has no idea that she took his gold. Obviously won't be too happy, no pun intended, to find out about that. New infestation pick coming down. Looks like he did manage to, actually I didn't catch that, but he focused it down when he went for that attack, so no more swarm hosts are coming out anytime soon. But that's the only unit this really affects. Trying to get around here. There's a Thor waiting with a lot of turrets, realizing that that's not going to happen. The same defensive weakness that was there earlier still presides right now. 3 Thors are moving to try and intercept this. They will get some pretty good volleys off, but it's really hard to catch those Mutalisks with that splash. And surprisingly, the Overseer, as we see, takes no damage from that volley. It gives no guffs. It's armored. Out of my way. But here on the front lines, this is a situation where, again, I kind of feel for Happy. He was making a lot of the right moves, and it's impossible to over-criticize what's been going on in this game. But what I really would have liked to have seen was Ravens much earlier and much more, I guess, quantity of them. A couple units are abducted into this instead of going for a Blinding Cloud. That's actually kind of a cute move, because abducts are more guaranteed kills in this scenario. You can throw down all those Blinding Clouds, but it's worth noting, guys, Thors can still shoot up out of a Blinding Cloud. Some Mutalisks will clump up on top of this as he draws a couple of the fires in. He's got some focus fire set up too, but Scarlett retreating with these swarm hosts. Happy is in such a rough spot. His last couple bases, this is really the only one he's got mining. This is pretty much mined out. This is gone. This is gone. And of course the gold was taken long ago. Recognizing that now, he finds it by mistake with that Thor. Looking to go for a big push. Scarlett still doesn't have a big bank behind this. Has to constantly replace these very expensive Mutalisks while this whole game's been going on, but Mutalisks seem to be her forte. These Thors, oh man, all it takes is one good magic box, and I feel they could all desperately go down. But cleans up the one Thor that was attacking her very important, very critical gold base. She is still pretty much maxed out. And with 3-3 finishing for melee plus chitinous plating, I think even a remax of Lings may even be a little bit dangerous, but abducts more Thors into this as the Thors start going down. This opens a way for the Mutalisk to get in here. All Scarlett has to do is consume, and I'd say pick off even just one more Thor. 4, 3, I mean, these are kind of worrisome amounts, but not scary, not the end of the game. But this is becoming a lot closer than it needs to be. Happy's getting on top of her, like, one of the most important bases she has. That's why she's clumped up over here. All the tech is elsewhere, granted. 2 siege tanks need to siege up if they want to kill that gold, by the way. But swoops on in here, splits her Mutalisk, and doesn't clump in the slightest. A perfect engagement for Scarlett on top of these Thors. She is losing Mutalisks, but not fast enough. The Viking count for Happy is not where it needs to be. It's weird to consider, but Vikings might have been a little better to have than all of these siege tanks. Regardless, he loses everything, and I think this time he's not going to be able to remax. He's got no gas, no minerals, no bank to fall back on, and Scarlett may have just done it. This game is looking really, really bad for Happy. But damn if these two didn't play it out to the accession of both races, to the maximum, if you will. Gold base is going to be killed, but there's creep tubers here as well, so Happy, it's not like Happy can even claim this base. There's no anti-air out, but a couple Vikings, some missile turrets, a planetary fortress. And I think these Swarmos will win Scarlett the game. If she rallies these in, there's no tanks to beat back those lines. There's no Hellbats to I guess, nullify the waves. There's an awkward point defense turn that's actually about to die. It'll protect these turrets for a little bit. But as we see goes down, I gotta give it to Happy. He played a really good game, but at this point, I think Scarlett may just be a little too overwhelming. He is not giving up, though. He's still making Thors. He's still making siege tanks. But GG is called in the end, and these Mutalisks are just a little too scary. GG, Acer, as they start this series off 1-0.